What is one of the best reactions you've gotten from filming content? The amount of looks you get is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it comes with the game.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I feel like there's this big buildup because there's some kind of action movement with the food, whether it's like pulling a cover off, like a smoked drink, or pouring some kind of sauce. And it's just like, yeah, like the cheese pull, like spaghetti pasta pull. And it's great when it goes well and you're like, oh my gosh, this is such good content. But also sometimes I don't have a poker face, so I worry that sometimes when something just falls flat so bad that I have this look of like complete disgust.
Welcome back to the BrewedAt podcast. I'm your host, Richie Tubman, joined by Evan Blum and joined by PhilMyTummy, aka Lea Lenzi. So welcome. I guess I met you 2 years ago when I saw Victory. So very full circle. I met you at the same time that I met Josh from Josh Eats Philly.
Yeah.
You guys came in to do a photo shoot, and that was my first interaction, I guess, with a food influencer or whatever you would categorize yourself as.
Yeah.
And it was like that was kind of the same time that I was like starting to get on podcasts myself. I was kind of starting to like realize, what was behind the curtain of social media and marketing and all these other things. I thought it was very interesting the way you guys were working and kind of everything that you guys were doing. And then talking to you guys, like figuring out your process of like how you're dealing with other customers or like, how you manage, your Instagram account. All these things were like, very interesting to me. And then when I got involved with Evan, like a lot of the stuff that he was doing was kind of very similar to what you were doing. So we're excited to have you on, hear about, how you got into this and then kind of get your perspective.
Yeah, so I actually started when I was in grad school. I probably could have spent more time studying, but you know how that goes. So my girlfriend and I at the time, there was only really Yelp and TripAdvisor reviews. Like Google reviews didn't exist. OpenTable didn't have reviews. Resy wasn't even a thing. And I moved to Philly for grad school from DC. And there was so many restaurants, I was overwhelmed. Everything was also way more affordable than DC, so I was excited to go out all the time. And a lot of Italian American, so I didn't know where I wanted to go, and I lived in Rittenhouse, and you read just the craziest stuff that people put in these reviews. Like 1 out of 10 plus would be actually something that's like a normal response from someone, like what your friend would say about a restaurant, and the rest of them are just so polarized.
Here's a keyboard warrior, and they just get online and just say whatever they want.
Yeah, they're very empowered when it's like positive and negative, and especially like awkward people like call out their servers by name, and it's just too much. So we started with doing just Instagram. My friend had mentioned to me in Boston and Miami, it was really big doing the online blogging with photos of these restaurants. So we would just kind of go to the places we loved, and it really took off from there. I mean, since COVID, it took off so much more. I actually do love to cook too, so I would try to do like recipe stuff, but it's really hard when you're kind of cooking to taste, to write out a specific recipe and like all the measurements and things. I kind of wing it, so that's not easy. But also we didn't have any professional like culinary background, so I kind of felt like, okay, maybe I'll just kind of like lay off that.
It's confusing as, your outward brand, it might be confusing. Like you have these like highly professional trained chefs, and then it's also your food that you're putting out, which I'm sure tasted great, but it was just a little bit different.
Right. And it's like a lot of food styling, which is hard too with, I think, homemade stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have all the tools like in a professional kitchen.
Food when you're at home.
Yeah, but over time we quickly learned that, restaurants have all these like professional marketing PR teams, and they would have press events and talk about, new hires, new chefs they were highlighting, seasonal menus. So very quickly, because I think it was early on, we were just like absorbed into this whole other world.
So it was really, they just kind of like, they saw what you were doing and you just kind of like kind of
Yeah. And I think especially talking to like the chefs and like general managers and owners, and actually them realizing like you're a real person, you care, and you're not just like coming in for a free meal.
Yeah.
I eat so much. So I think too, like with women, sometimes they just expect you not to eat anything. And they're like, wow, you like cleared your plate. And, you know, you're trying like not to take that the wrong way.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, for sure. And we've definitely...
It's a compliment to themselves. They're like,
oh,
I did
yeah.
an incredible job. They're not even thinking about you, but...
Yeah. But nowadays, too, I mean, you still get, like, servers that have this reaction like, wow, you ate all that food. And I'm thinking,
well, that's because they wanted it.
Yeah. I'm like, it was good. Yeah, it is a compliment. It's just, it's very funny. I've also had servers tell me, like, oh, no, that's enough. You don't need to order anymore.
Oh my gosh.
And it's, I mean, people are people, and they say things without thinking. So you just try to like have grace. But I will say, I have never been a server, never been a bartender. I give them so much credit because the stuff that they put up with and the attitudes people have, even when you're doing everything right, it's not nice. And I don't know how they put up with that day after day.
No, they're people too, and it's just like they get the butt end of everything. It's just like people treat them like they're not. Yeah.
And people just, I think you can realize sometimes off the bat someone's just not a very nice person or having a bad day, and no matter what you can, no matter how much you try, you're just not going to get it right.
Yeah.
So
remember the tip.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's been really great over the years, getting all over the city.
Start exactly. Was it a website first, or did you start with?
So we started with Instagram, and I think when we hit like 10, 15, 20K, we started doing the website with like full articles. I've kind of scaled back on that because since COVID, stuff changes so much with these restaurants.
So
yeah. And it's tough because sometimes they want you in there the first person to announce something, but the second they we're now serving brunch. But then the second that they realize it's flopping, they just pull it so fast.
And then you read this article and everyone's just like, wait, what you wrote about isn't even here.
Yeah. And there's people in Philly that are like, again, professional journalists, have a background, take their job very seriously. And I think as it's been harder in the traditional press and media to get, kind of the standing that you have nowadays because so much of people get their news from social media.
Yeah.
It is kind of like a weird dynamic sometimes thinking that people in like the traditional media circuit might not be super comfortable with like blogger influencer types.
Yeah.
But I think we all kind of should work together. I just think it's hard because for some people, things have been changing so quickly, and they can't help it that their company wants to just hire a bunch of interns that they don't pay and cut their salary and stuff like that.
So what was the style that you ran? I mean, when we had Josh on, like he talked about like he was just posting random things and like he came in the era of just like some big fancy ice cream thing that was like Instagrammable.
Yes, like the food
with
porn.
Some crazy
yeah, like with New York and Boston and Miami, there was a lot of that. The one guy, Jonathan, who's friends with like Kim Kardashian, is like food porn.
Food guy.
I don't even know why. I think he was just one of the first people. I just found out on TikTok today that Bethany Frankel from Real Housewives apparently trademarked the term food porn. I mean, there's just so many weird things. It's funny because you forget too, being on the East Coast, like sometimes how on the West Coast stuff like trends and things are hitting so fast, and by the time it gets to us, they've already seen it for like 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
I realized that with fashion when I got to college because I grew up in like the suburbs, and I went to school with people from like Miami and New York, and they really knew how to dress.
Cool.
The things they were wearing, I was like, I have never, like a romper, like a one piece, I'd never seen that before. And then, then it's literally everywhere, Walmart, Target. But we were just kind of like sitting down, I feel like the perspective of just like a first person diner looking at their plate, some places have nice table settings with like your drink and your food. And it really wasn't high tech. I mean, even just taking photos on your phone was so bad now. Like the quality is terrible. Everyone on Instagram used the filters, and it wasn't like photo editing app filters.
No,
it was like the same 9 filters that Instagram had, and one was like the vintage looking one with the black border.
Yeah.
And the other one was kind of like a rainbow gradient thing, black and white. The beginning was very, very archaic, and there wasn't a lot of other bloggers in the Philly area, so you could see cool content from other cities. But it didn't always translate because, you know, Philly has such great restaurants, but a lot of them aren't super high end and showy.
They're not like it's a lot of neighborhood mom and pop shops.
Right. So you're not getting this crazy table setting with like 6 forks and like all of these fancy plates.
And the plating setting where like they design like
where it looks beautiful and very much designed towards an Instagram at some point.
Yeah, I think when you kind of look at like Michelin rated restaurants, you realize that's like the epitome. Like it is really, really art, and people don't always realize that because they're just enjoying it, which is great because that's really what's most important.
Yeah.
Do you remember what your first like viral video was and like how you felt?
It's tough to say because I honestly in the beginning you're just so excited. Like you get like 10 likes and you're so excited. You're like anyone, and the fact that anyone cares.
Like someone follows you, like I don't know this person.
Yeah, the internet's a scary place for that because it kind of fuels like the good and the bad in people because they just something obscure and strange can totally be, you know, enjoyed. And when you don't feel like, I guess, you like connect with humans in person, it's great to have that kind of positive feedback loop. But yeah, so in the beginning, I can't really remember. I do remember that, especially with doing more videos, there was a restaurant down in Atlantic City that did like the table side carbonara. So they had like the pasta they had the pasta with the egg yolk. So it was like breaking the egg yolk, mixing it. And what I realized too with viral videos is things go viral because they're good, but also for bad reasons. So there was a lot of Italians because this had like reached, you know, beyond the English speaking portion of Instagram. And there was a lot of Italians commenting in Italian, you know, this is so disgusting because you could tell that there was a lot of cream in the pasta.
And not traditional.
And that's not right. That's not traditional. So it was very interesting, but that one definitely like took off.
Our most viral YouTube short was something that I said I don't like Jordan Peterson, and then it was just filled with comments of like, "Fuck you, Jordan Peterson's the best." I'm like, all right, how harmful was that? Like, let's just say some more controversial stuff that's like not controversial.
Well,
we can't do that. Like, you have to.
It is so crazy though with the internet now and like social media. I feel like there's so much clickbait, like the titles of articles of things, and people just act. You know, I feel like especially on TikTok, I'm seeing stuff all the time where I guess people are just kind of testing out like how outrageous
tactics
can they be and making up all these fake stories, and it just blows my mind. I'm like, this feels like so much effort to just not be yourself. Like, why don't you just be who you are? But I guess it's easier for them if it doesn't work. They can just kind of like pivot and go to the next, the next type of thing. But there's definitely like a lot of, I've learned through social media recently, there like a lot of people who probably have a future in comedy. Like I feel like a lot of parody, like stand-up comic. It's funny because I just was at a comedy show at Helium in Center City, and you know they were great performers, but I see and like, you know, you're not supposed to record anything. They don't want you to steal the material, which I don't know why that's a new thing because comedy's been around for so long, and I feel like there wasn't a concern with that before. But there's so many people on social media with really good jokes and really
where it's not like music. You can listen to the same song 10 times in a row.
Yeah,
and it's just as good. I think comedy, it's like once you hear the joke once, it's definitely not as funny.
Yeah.
And I think that they're still just like so tight about that. I think it's just part of the culture.
Yeah, I guess like, well, comedy's popping off like right now, and just like through social media as well. I think like the biggest podcast in the world is Kill Tony, which I'm a big fan of. I just started listening to it, but like every comedian trying to make their name also, they're putting the clips on Instagram to like also try to make.
Are you seeing more content coming from like people from comedy shows and stuff are reaching out to you?
I feel like it's like original creators and like younger, like definitely younger users, and not really like and there's like all different types of comedy, right? So it's not necessarily like the traditional impressions of, you know, people and this and that. But I do think that with all these industries, things get like so overexposed. Like the exposure is good, right? And then it's so overexposed that people kind of get sick of you and they're like, you need to go away for a little while. So then it needs to like go underground again so that people get really curious. Like the speakeasy vibe, like it was so cool when you first went to a speakeasy, and then so many speakeasies. Every bar on the corner is calling themselves speakeasy.
Yeah.
And you're just like, all right, the allure is gone. The mystery is gone. So yeah, maybe that's kind of what they're trying to like bring back with some of like the comedy clubs and things. It is cool too. Like Helium's more like of an underground. It feels very like traditional old school comedy club. It's great seeing, a comedian you love in any venue, but it's way different at like Wells Fargo than a place like that.
For sure.
We talk about like, underground, but like are most people you deal with, are they kind of single destination places? Is it mostly corporate places that kind of bring you on, or?
So this is not my full-time job,
Yeah.
which I think is great for me because I don't have to say yes to a lot of the corporate stuff.
Yeah.
I think you see the same creators because the same companies start throwing money around and paying
And they just start chasing the money instead of what they wanted.
Yeah, and a lot of times the corporate too, they're very
specific
about what they want, and they're like, we need the video to be like this, and it's so bad because every person's video comes out and it feels so staged.
Like, what are you hiring me for? Like, I'm the creator.
Right.
Why are you telling me? You have no idea what you're doing.
But the bigger they get, the more like their legal department, I feel like, chimes in, and it's like, okay, well, sometimes the stuff that they say to me, like, oh, make a video, but don't use profanity. The fact that you have to say that to someone, that's kind of sad, right?
Also,
like,
have they seen any of your videos? Like, you
yeah, but just videos. Like, if something bad must have happened, maybe they didn't vet someone out. I've been to tons of events, like, in Philly, in the Philly area, that serve alcohol, and I was never worried. I was always 21, but they're not really carding anyone because it's kind of like being at a wedding or something. Everyone's kind of like, they're like hanging out, having fun. You don't want that kind of vibe. But over time, I think that some of these places will start to have, and I've seen it in a few emails with invitations, like, must be 21 to attend the event. Like, it's just kind of the threat so that they don't have to turn people away at the door.
Yeah.
But I really like working with the smaller businesses. It was really fun. And it has been over the years to like connect with like a chef or a business owner, and then when they do well and they succeed and move on somewhere else, you can kind of follow their journey, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's not always positive sometimes when their journey is like, there's different forks in the road, but it's definitely great. It's just I think you just always want to have clear communication. It's more understood now, but in the very beginning when I was doing kind of like the blogging, it was so new. So you didn't really know what people's expectations were, what they were hoping to get out of it. I mean, even to this day, with it being so much more commonplace, I'll have people straight up say to me like, oh, I don't really use social media, so I don't exactly know what you're doing, which is fine. But yeah, you just hope at that point, like, they trust you.
So the marketing people reach out, like the people that are kind of trying to get on social media reach out. But have you noticed a difference, like, even chefs or anybody else, do they think everyone's kind of wrapped their head around this by now? So, like, are you seeing more engagement from other people?
Yeah, I think that if you get kind of like a direct message, like if you meet someone in person or they're DMing you on Instagram, the chances are they are probably a business owner, a general manager of a restaurant, or a chef.
Yeah.
Everything that comes through emails tends to be more
corporate,
more screened, more, finessed. But I will say that, sometimes when you don't have all the time to kind of sift through the good and the bad, it is nice to get up front, like, okay, this is what we want from you. This is the timeline, expectation. No matter who you're working with, you just always want everyone to be happy with the end result. So I think that if the communication is a little clear up front, it helps you realize, like, okay, this is a good fit or it's not a good fit.
Yeah. I guess the worst is, like, if they don't give you any direction and then you give them something that's like your work and like, well, actually I wanted it like this.
Yeah.
It's just like, you clearly just don't know how this works. Like, I'm not like...
Right. And I've been really lucky. I mean, most of the brands that I've worked with, paid or unpaid, usually they see my content. They're really happy with it. I love when, they're really moved because they feel like I put more effort in than they were expecting, which is nice.
I mean, how hard is it? Like, if they're DMing you, like, your portfolio is right there.
Right,
videos.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's still, like, such a learning curve. And I think depending on your age, too, some business owners, like, they use their social media, but they really don't know how to do things. So they are, like, amazed. Yeah. Like, it is, like, magic when you show them, like, oh, this is how you edit something. Someone asked me the other day, what's a geotag? Like, there's just so much knowledge. And I'll be honest with you, even when TikTok came out, I was like, I'm not going to get into this. It's so much to learn. And this is like me aging myself because I'm like, oh gosh, one more thing. When Snapchat came out, all my friends that were blogging, oh, you got to make a Snapchat.
Do you have a Snapchat? I don't know anyone who uses Snapchat anymore.
I had a Snapchat in college.
I had a Snapchat when I realized what people were using Snapchat for. I was like, I don't even have Snapchat.
Snapchat has gone so far that they're now getting billboards. Like
the billboards?
The billboards I think are kind of funny, but like.
And it's like, what is it? Like less social media, more Snapchat or something?
You can't like them, like less likes, more love. But it's...
Except that you have like people using it for like perverted, like...
Yeah, it's just...
Like
it's
people
like
are...
Other, but it's like...
Yeah.
It's... Like your whole thing is social media. Why are you now going back to this like... billboard? I guess they want to be different.
To pick a lane,
but it's
someone sold them on that. Like we're social media, but not. Which I don't know how much I buy into that. But some of these, I mean, I think some of these companies, unless you completely change your business model, you already see you're trending down. So
they should have sold the.
I was gonna say that's when you look back and you're like, oh, we should have taken that deal. Unfortunately. But no, I'm really lucky because I've been doing this now for so long, and honestly, I feel like I've only ever had like one specific business owner that was like very, very negative with me. And I tried to like explain to her and have an understanding, and she was not having it. And I put up my hands. I'm like, you know what? This is all I can do. I'm not going to feel bad about it.
There's a lot of fish in the sea.
Yeah. And I think I'm glad that came later on, because in the beginning, I think that really would have like crushed me. And
definitely. You have enough experience to know like this is not normal. Like I'm the
right. And you take for granted, right? Like the good situation would be that someone's reaching out to you to like help spread the news, and it's in a good position. But some of these people are in very, stressful positions, and they're strained financially, and they're kind of like holding on to these like last like hopes. And I think that unfortunately, no matter what you do, like all the bloggers in Philadelphia could post for you. You could have videos going viral, and like the structure of your business and why things aren't working out, I might not turn it around.
Yeah, the issue is not you having content on social media.
Right. And I think that if you're someone who is using the social media in the 11th hour like that, it's really hard to see that. It's something that hopefully if you had the knowledge and understanding, you could kind of take it from the beginning so that you just always have awareness. And that's why I try to remind some business owners, it's like, it's not about, okay, business is really slow, January, February, March. It's like always reminding, we're in a city, right? There's always new restaurants opening in neighborhoods. There's always construction in the cities closing down streets. You just always want to have that, like your brand awareness constantly. Like you don't want people to forget about you. And the first time they see a viral video, it doesn't mean they're making a reservation to come in that night or that weekend. So you kind of always need to be like in the back of their mind. So when they think about, oh, what do I like? Do I want sushi tonight? Ooh, I should try that sushi place.
Do you double up ever? Have you gone back to places?
Oh yeah. I try not to post like back to back from the same place because I feel like that's not fair. And with my time frame, I'm trying to kind of like vary the material. Even just posting like a lot of the same types of food, like a lot of cheesesteak places or a lot of wings places. Because also, I'm trying to have variety for my audience. The gluten-free thing became really, really big at a lot of restaurants. And suddenly I'm kind of like, okay, I need to either mention this in the caption or try to be conscious of ordering more items like that. So some, when restaurants don't always understand, I'm like, I need more than 2 dishes because I'm trying to show your variety for your customers, but also I don't know what people want, right? Like maybe they've been dieting for months and they really want to like binge on something super greasy and unhealthy, or maybe, it's that time, it's getting to be the summer and they're thinking about being healthy and cleaner eating and starting, new good trends for their body and self-care. So they want to see like something more green with vegetables. So there's a lot that goes into it. I think that just kind of talking it through with the business owner helps them kind of like understand. And then for them too, right? Like crafting a menu and having something that's kind of for everyone, but also like your specific type of customer is good.
So when they reach out to you, they want to highlight specific things, or you kind of know what you're doing, where like you look at the menu and you're like, we should be talking about these.
Yeah, I usually talk to them beforehand. The biggest concern I have in general is that I'll come in and it hasn't happened often, but I've come in and chefs will be like, oh, let me send things out for you, which is so exciting because I love all different types of food. There's only a few things I really don't eat. But there's been times where they start sending me things and I'm not recognizing any of the dishes. And then I'll say to them or the server, oh, are these on the menu? Oh, no, these are like not even coming soon. These are like experiments that the chef is testing out, which is great. But I'm like, I can't promote something that someone can't come in. And other restaurants have even told me when they did like a news segment, oh, we highlighted a few dishes with the news team. And then we took one or two of those things off the menu because no one will order it. And then the news segment airs. And everyone's coming in and asking for that. And people will get upset at anything. So you really have to be so conscious of that. So that's something I kind of like try to talk through with them. Or if they have special seasonal menu items, like, okay, how long is this on the menu for? Stuff like that. Sometimes servers kind of like get it when I'm peppering them with all these questions. And other times they're like, their eyeballs like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, I guess a lot of them probably hire you like you'll just come in and like it'll work itself out, but like you have to think about like your audience, what you're trying to do business wise.
Right.
It's a specific goal that you're trying to do with your videos.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's so different when you are the social media account versus you're just creating content for a business, because you have to then also, you're looking at your account to feed an audience so it doesn't then get stale.
Right.
So this can support the business. That's something that definitely have looked through and learned through some of our past experiences. And
I think it's good too to just talk through some of these things because people get it, and especially when they're so close to the concept, they really have so much that they put behind it, but I don't know if it's easy for them to kind of like translate it to the customer. Mm-hmm. So asking all these questions, sometimes it's like, oh, I thought you would have kind of like get that. And you're like, no, maybe it needs to be a little more, laid out for me. Cause even, just there's so much that goes into it. And I think honestly too, I also forget there's people who are just creatures of habit that go into this, they go to all their same restaurants they love. They always order the same thing. And they're probably not like looking at my content thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to go all the way out of my comfort zone and try this. But, they always could one day. And I think that, you got to be able to reach them. And also if they're just someone who like loves burgers, it's like, okay, maybe they're never going to come into your restaurant because it's like out of their normal routine. But then they see like the picture of the burger, or they see the picture of some kind of dish that makes them really excited, or they have a special occasion like a birthday or anniversary, and they're thinking, okay, like maybe I'll be adventurous and try somewhere new.
I want to dig in a little bit. So you have a marketing background as well. Did you ever envision like social media was going to be like the path for that?
I really did not. I have a minor in fine arts, so I did like photography and drawing classes when I was in high school and like before college. And I think that that when I talked to my parents about a future career, art, my mom's sister was an artist, and it's just like it's going to be a hard uphill battle. So I was trying to think like, okay, how do I marry marketing and art into something that's can be like a good stable career. So I thought kind of like the graphic art side of marketing, but I didn't really go to a college that had a lot of courses for that. So it was more like the advertising or sales route. And I got stuck in because of my course load with a lot of the sales classes. And I worked for a company that just made like promotional products like koozies and sunglasses. And I just hated it. I did not want to be selling stuff I did not care about. Even to this day, it's funny. Some people will say like, oh, don't you feel like you're selling the food though? And I'm like, yes and no. It's like very artistic the way you can kind of put together the setup for a photo or a video. I love giving like the perspective of like the first person, like this is how it should look when you like go into the restaurant and you look around, and this is like the ambiance, and the videos on Instagram and TikTok have helped so much with that. So it just feels real. Like it's terrible when people say like, oh, this is Instagram and this is reality. Yeah. And whether that's the way people look or the way it is dining or the way it is going on vacation somewhere, like it never occurred to me that people were trying so hard to make things appear not as they are. And I'd rather have like a kind of like a more realistic point of view. Obviously, you know, you try to get like the good lighting and the good shots and the good angles, but I'm not like AI editing images and like putting different backgrounds like, oh, this is me next to the Eiffel Tower.
No, but it's real because, I mean, you're showing what it is to walk into those things, and the small business, small restaurant is having like complete renaissance. Like most fast food places are going out of business very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of chain restaurants like, TGI Fridays, Outback Steakhouse, they're not doing well at all. And I think it's because social media has put a spotlight on these small businesses, because people like you showcase them, where now it's like the same thing that, like, instead of watching football on Sundays and you see like an Outback Steakhouse commercial 30 times, they're also on social media all the time, and they see that you're promoting this.
Mm-hmm.
And, these small business owners are able to compete with the large corporations by just bringing somebody like you in, as opposed to paying like millions of dollars to get a video of their restaurant up on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, people genuinely, they go somewhere special for a holiday or a birthday, but the restaurants that you frequent the most are atmospheres where you feel comfortable. Cooking reminds you of like nostalgia, something from your childhood, something from your family. There's, a lot into it that people don't realize. And it's just great for restaurants just to have that return business. I think it's so much easier to capture that than constantly having to draw like a new customer every single time. And then you're also dealing with so much potential backlash if that person is a difficult type of
it's also
a difficult person to please, really.
Yeah, and it's easier to manage. Like, just thinking of it as in the business perspective, like if you're having the same customers over and over, you know what products to make for them to order. Or if you're getting new people all the time, you kind of have to like keep reinventing or keep making that original sale every single time.
And I feel like if you see trends with trying to put new things on the menu, raising prices, like changing the format of the restaurant or the seating or this and that, like those repeat customers are the ones you can trust to let you know if things are going well or not. Like someone who comes in once and gives you rave reviews, like that's great, but then they're gone and they're never back again.
Yeah.
So it's been really great. I love working with like the small businesses in Philly, and when you talk to these people who care, like they care so much. It is literally like their family. I mean, they spend more time in their business than they do at home. Hopefully they have like they foster kind of that good environment where their staff and stuff feels it too. And I feel like that is also like the vibes you pick up on when you're dining there, which is, kind of like the unsaid stuff that like, it's just kind of a regular place, but I like love it every time I go. I like leave with this like good feeling. And in the beginning, it was funny because I would talk to business owners, not really the chefs, but like the owners of some restaurants, and they'd say, "Oh, I want you to come in when I'm there." So I'm like, "Oh, when are you there?" Some of them would be like, "I'm there all the time," and then I get the extreme that would be like, "Oh, I'm only there like once every 2 weeks," and you can tell. Like you go into those businesses and you can tell. I mean, we all know how we act when like our boss isn't watching us. Like everyone tries to be a good person. But it feels better when you're a team and you're all like kind of working together for the greater goal. And I think that just like brings out the best in everyone.
Cool. So we had talked a little bit before you got on. I'm seeing a lot of Atlantic City content.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other trends that you're seeing? I mean, I know personally, my girlfriend's Mexican, his girlfriend's Indian, and I don't know if it's like a bias, but I'm seeing a lot more Mexican places pop up. I mean, El Mano, Cantina La Martina is getting like so much attention, and I'm seeing like Indian restaurants pop up like all over the city and all over everything. Like, are you seeing trends?
I am seeing a little more.
Also,
of that.
African food also. I don't know if that's like just because it's getting more attention on social media, or I'm seeing just things that are different than just like Italian restaurants.
Right. I mean, some of the stuff that like the social media was crazy with was like the rolled ice cream, the Nashville hot chicken. Those and you see it because it like comes and goes really fast. In general, I think that there's probably a lot of restaurant owners that they were doing whatever cuisine they thought was marketable as opposed to like what they grew up with and what they love.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, with people being more willing to try new things, that they feel like, okay, there's a market to try this. Like, I feel like all I would hear is, you know, if Asian families would open restaurants and it would be Chinese food, even if they were Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese.
Yeah.
And like in the suburbs, it's like notorious for finding a restaurant that's not one type of Asian cuisine. It's like all of them in one.
Yeah.
And I'm
just
thinking
Asian
to
food.
myself, like, this is crazy. You have
From the
so many types. Yeah, Thai, sushi, Chinese. And, you know, as
Yeah, you
much
don't
as
go
some
to-
people think
you
that's
don't
all
go
the
to
same,
Japan
it's
and be like,
not.
This is a European food restaurant. Like,
Yeah, especially
what?
with Japanese, you're just like, this is like too much.
Yeah.
So I think that it is nice that some people are doing like more niche and specific types of cuisine. I definitely think I've noticed some kind of like high-end Indian cuisine and like a little more like fusion type things. I
Yeah.
do see a lot that there's like restaurateurs and chefs from like the New York area. So I'm hoping maybe that
Coming from New York to Philly.
yeah, or like bringing a concept that has worked in New York that they
Okay.
can open up in Philly. So I think that that's really nice, especially with like a more diverse type of offering. I hope with social media that it like brings awareness, but I know that there's just so many fads, and there's like the cucumber guy on TikTok now, and that's like it'll be here, but then it goes. So the problem is like tapping into that at the very beginning, because usually we're all catching on, and then it's just like over in a flash.
I mean, we talk about this all the time. Like the breweries that stay around are the breweries that are like are true to themselves, and like they are doing something unique, but it's not that they're chasing the trends, because trends happen so fast. You can't
Right.
change all the time.
Right. And then your customers too have to be able to rely on you. So if they think that
And
you're
there's gonna be
constantly
customers that are more
changing.
valuable. It's just like, all right, maybe they liked what you were doing before. That doesn't mean that they're gonna like you when you completely change again. They liked what you were doing
Right.
before.
Right. And it's, yeah, I definitely saw specifically with the trending, with like the breweries, it was like the seltzers, and then like the tequila seltzers, and then the iced tea, the alcoholic iced tea
Yeah.
has gotten
I mean,
so
seltzers
big.
changed. Everyone's like, these are gonna like bring brewing out of business. Now seltzer's down 35%.
Oh, yeah.
Year over year.
Because as
And
fast
next
as
year-
it goes up, it's going to come down.
Exactly. You need like something more stable than that. Like you can keep chasing the trends, but like they're gonna go away.
Yeah, I feel like it's always smart to have some attention and like finger on the pulse with those types of things, but you just can't let it distract you.
You can
from...
be ignorant of them, but you have to be able to see the whole picture.
Yeah, a lot of the breweries do a pretty good job with that. Like at this point, I feel like there's usually a non-alcoholic beer on tap right now.
I was gonna say non-alcoholic is
Yeah.
huge now.
Yeah, well,
too.
I'm the opposite way of that. Like I think seltzers, teas, NA beers. I think NA beers are very much a trend, and everyone's just like, yeah, but what do you think about Athletic? Like, yeah, but what about White Claw? White Claw is very quickly losing all their market share.
Right.
Just because they're hot right now. There was recently in Manayunk an NA bar.
Okay.
Opened up last year, already out of business.
Really? That's a
Yeah,
shame.
and it's like
It's a tough market in Manayunk too, because I feel like you're not really the
Well,
suburbs, so
NA
you're not as
doesn't-
connected to the
doesn't
rest
make
of the
any sense.
city.
It's like the economy is bad right now, and people are
Right.
spending all this money.
Right.
You're basically buying fruit juice. So if you're gonna buy $14 for a fruit juice that looks like some cocktail, it really costs $1. Where a cocktail, you're like the markup is like 50%, but any cocktail is like the markup is insane. I think people are like not willing to pay that much money for a ginger forward.
Right, and I think mocktails have always been around, so even though you didn't have like your favorite beer, non-alcoholic, there was still options. That's always been around. I think too that the problem is I see a lot of bars and restaurants selling the non-alcoholic options for the exact same price as the alcoholic options. And if it's cheaper,
Well,
it's like
it's
$1
not.
or $2.
For beer,
and
it's
I'm like,
more
you can't
expensive.
do this to the
But-
can't do this to the customer.
I think it's very much a trend, and it is very hard and very expensive to make NA beer. And I think Athletic is going to survive, but I think the craft breweries that are leaning on it. They're wasting their money right now. They're not making any money. They're like, well, if we get big enough, we can start making money. And like, well, at that point, it's going to be some other trend.
And I think that it's intentional. I mean, all of the NA packaging options look almost exactly like alcoholic, and if it was so sustainable and like you could really lean on it, it would be more like eye-catching. I think
100%.
honestly, like my parents could walk into a liquor store and just by accident, because it's like right next to the display of the other one. Like the coloring is exactly the same.
Literally sent my friend out to grab some beer when we were pre-gaming at my house, and he came back with an Athletic beer 6-pack. Okay, we're back. We stopped for a second. Our audio recorder died, but we have luckily all these fancy equipment here that something else picked us up hopefully. So if you didn't catch that, we're just going to start back up in the middle of the conversation if you did. So NA beers, I guess. I don't know if we were done talking about that, but
Richie, you went off on NA beers, and that's
that's
your
about
thing.
it. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because it reminded me of the first time I went to a vegan restaurant and they were telling me about the vegan ham and the vegan sausage and other things. And they're like, it tastes just like ham.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, that's such an interesting thing because I would think it being so similar might be off-putting.
I feel the same way.
But even with
I'm not trying to. I get people like want to be in an environment where people are drinking beer and look like that,
right?
And kind of act like that,
right?
But there's better tasting things that aren't alcoholic,
right? And I was confused for a while too because when I was younger, my college boyfriend, his mom had an issue with drinking, and then she would drink the non-alcoholic. And I'm thinking, if you can't be in a bar environment because it's triggering, how is not something that almost tastes exactly like that doing that to you?
Yeah, like let me stop smoking cigarettes. Let me just eat candy cigarettes. It's like, all right, there's another option here.
Yeah, it's definitely great that people are, the sober curious thing has become such a trend. The sad thing is that because innately we're calling it a trend, it's like only going to last for so long, and then people will go back to whatever they're going back to.
Yeah.
I've noticed more recently with people doing like dry January and the sober curious, they're getting into like CBD seltzers. So I'm thinking, like you're saying, okay, well, if we feel like we have a dependence, we're channeling our dependence and our crush onto something else.
Yeah.
So I don't know necessarily if we're curing that, but I guess, people are just trying to.
Yeah, I talked about this a couple podcasts ago. Like Gen Z is a very funny generation where like, they're healthy by not drinking alcohol and they like will smoke weed and take mushrooms, but then they'll drink like this artificially flavored and colored thing and just be like not even thinking about it. Like there's like there seems to be like confusing message.
Until they actually learn about it, then things will probably change.
Because people only want to change so much, right? They still have their crushes, they still have things they enjoy, they don't want to completely erase that. So it's just trying to like swap things out. It's also just, how sustainable is it, right? Like if you're never gonna, if it's so extreme and you're just gonna kind of revert to the original behavior, is it worth sending yourself through that whole journey? Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see what people decide is like a better choice for themselves. Mm-hmm. And
so gluten-free is a big thing now.
Yes.
Are you seeing that a lot? Big. Like people are asking you to showcase their gluten-free stuff, or are there more gluten-free forward restaurants?
Yeah, so there's definitely some restaurants that I think originally have a lot more gluten-free options, and they're leaning into that because they don't have to like create all these substitutes like other restaurants have.
Yeah.
And trying to choose dishes that just are naturally already that way, because it's hard for them to be, supplying all these extra things.
It's very clear to also tell, like, my girlfriend is gluten-free. It's very clear to tell when there's something that is gluten-free and they have it perfected versus it is not.
Right.
And they're just trying.
Right. And the problem is that you have a lot of people who are choosing it particularly for their diet right now, but it's not a life necessity, so they're really going to be harsh with you when something is like not up to snuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember even pizzerias telling me like, oh, we're going to do a vegan pie, but it's going to be a red pie because the vegan cheese is not what I consider to be like a good substitute. So I've had a lot of sandwich shops usually that say like, oh, we don't want to do gluten-free because the rolls are just like not what we would want to serve our customers. We don't think it's like a good replacement. So I commend them for that. I think that's nice because I've
seen some really bad bagels. That's it. Just bad bagels. Yeah. Not good.
It's also hard because
people. Is that a brick? Like, what
is usually it's like really dense. Yeah. So gluten-free brownies, awesome, super fudgy, but other things just it doesn't have like the elasticity.
Yeah, it reminds me of like what pilgrims ate when they were coming over from England or something like that.
It's also a liability for these restaurants too, right? You have people coming in saying that they need things without gluten. I was at Laser Wolf in Kensington, and it was like, oh, we're making pita, and there's flour literally in the air. So if we want you to be safe, you probably shouldn't eat anything. You don't want to tell that to a customer, like, okay, please leave with your money. But then the people would say, oh, no, it's just like a light, like this or that or the other thing. Because they need like separate fryers. I went to a hotel that had like on the breakfast buffet, like separate toasters. I mean, it's a whole thing. So I feel like if you're going to do it, you kind of have to do it right, because you're going to start pulling in people who really do have like extreme medical need to not have contaminated food.
So you mentioned Laser Wolf. Did you make content for them, or you just went in?
No, I just went in. Yeah.
So a lot of people you deal with, I mean, I would consider Laser Wolf like a lower end, high end food. I mean, very high end, but like, you know, not Zahav, I guess.
Right. It's like a more casual setting. I don't know that you would call it like fine dining.
I think
even though it's elevated.
It's like there's a fine dining that's like a casual fine dining that's coming around.
Yeah, I definitely think that I see that a lot more. Even just kind of like the prefix menu type option used to be only at like very, very high-end restaurants, and you see that more at a lot of like casual spots also.
Yeah, Evan talks about this all the time. I mean, Gen Z is very much experiential based, and I think the trend is coming like even to restaurants. It's like even going to a restaurant is almost an experience also, where it's not just the food, but the prefix thing is like, you know, also.
Yes, it's like a specific type of dining. You wouldn't dine that way at home. You're not just like going to come in and order.
Like the Laser Wolf, you get like the hummus platter or whatever they call it. It's like, you know, you have to get that. You can't go in there and not get it. It's part of it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's just funny to me because I always felt like going out to a restaurant, no matter what kind of restaurant, was such a treat. And then people would say things like, oh, I don't want to go there. It's so stuffy. They have tablecloths. And I think to myself, like, I don't know. I feel kind of special, right? Like I feel like royalty. I feel like I'm having like this really special experience. And usually, you know, those types of places like tend to train their staff for a lot, you know, different type of dining experience than other spots that are just, you know, like, we don't really care. We like barely wipe the table. It's sticky. You know,
like
you want a fork and a knife, like, okay, you have a lot of demands.
And that's part of the experience.
You will get a spoon.
Right. Yeah. I know that definitely. I think there was like a chain at one point that was all about like the servers being like really nasty to you.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I
Dick's Last Resort, I want to say.
I think that's it.
I never went. I think it was like in Vegas and some of those touristy places, but yeah, definitely a very interesting type of experience. It is funny though, because some people want to be, when they go in, and I worked in retail, so I think it's kind of similar, right? Like some people want to kind of go in and be left alone, like minimal contact with the service and the staff. And then other people want every 5 minutes, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Like they want so much attention. So I think too, that might go along with the type of dining, and maybe at a fine dining restaurant, they're more or less like paying attention to you and like in tune with your feelings and, oh, you're not eating that. Is everything all right? And the other more casual spots, it's kind of just, okay, just do your thing. Like,
what do you think your audience is like? Do you have like this kind of a niche? Like, do you think it's, you know, younger people? Do you think it's kind of young professionals? Like, is there like one specific thing that you think a lot of is it male, female? Like,
yeah, like it skews towards female, and I don't try to put myself in a lot of content because I don't really like it to be about me, and I've had a lot of businesses.
And you say you don't have a voiceover; it's just music, right? Some of it.
I usually try not to do a voiceover. I think I love the photo and video content. The video is super popular. Some of the videos for certain creators are so stylized, it's clearly them, which is good. But how many times can that be repurposed? Because it's so much like their specific commercial.
And if you go to the restaurant, it does not look like what they were taking a picture of.
Right. And so some of these restaurants, the reason that they want me to come in is to create my type of content, reach my audience, but also have content that they can be resharing and repurposing because they don't have the time and the understanding to like craft and edit this type of material.
Yeah.
So I do always take photos and videos. The photos, I think, for them are the easiest to repurpose.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's good all around. But I think, you know, some creators too, like their specific persona is very much their trademark, and that works for them really well. So I don't think it's something to shy away from. I just didn't really lean into that so hard. So nowadays I kind of, things skew however they skew. But
how is your editing process like? So it's funny on this podcast, like we talk a little bit, Richie gets into like the beer making process as an actual classically trained brewer.
Mm-hmm.
Me not being so. I edit a lot of videos, so we're gonna show the audience some of the editing styles. But like, how long does editing take? Because it is a significant period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do your own editing? If you don't,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, I try to edit. I mean, I went through a whole phase, right? Like I did photography when I was younger. Cell phone cameras weren't so good. So I kind of I would have my camera for travel and things like that. And then your phone just became everything. Mm-hmm. Camera, video camera. I mean, I used to do like stop motion claymation videos when I was younger. And my dad had like the big camcorder. Yeah. So the phone just became everything. And then my girlfriend, who's a professional photographer, would tell me sometimes she would transfer all of her content, video or photo, onto her computer to edit it there with her good software. And then she had to like move it all back to the phone. And obviously there's ways not to do that, but I try to keep everything on my phone. So it's just like always with me. That being said, it's completely horrific every time you drop your phone and you're like, oh my God, should I crack it? Is it okay? It's just like way too much that we're attached to these things now. But it is great because it just, there's so many features, so many different programs that have the interface, not only for computers, but for phone. Mm-hmm. I have like the biggest iPhone, so the screen's as big as possible. But it definitely takes a lot of time, especially with the video styling. The shorter, faster videos are very, very trendy, but I'm always kind of torn because sometimes I feel like videos get so many views because it is so hard to understand what the heck is going on in the video. Like the clips are so short.
It's just content.
It's so so fast. And I know at the end of the day, even that goes viral. Like, I don't know that business owner is going to be happy with me.
Yeah, because they were trying to figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah. I think that most business owners want your video to be like a nice little mini commercial for them. Mm-hmm. So some kind of length that maybe is like under 30 seconds, but not like 10. Because they, especially like when I go in places, I'm spending probably a normal diner, goes in an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's like most places I'm there for like 2 to 3 hours. I'm talking to them, getting the content, moving things around different angles. And then I'm going home and editing stuff and figuring out, okay, do I want to like sync this to like, is there a song I just heard recently that I feel like is so catchy and I want to kind of like sync this? Like this is kind of like a good vibe and like a good song for the business.
Is that how you listen to music now? It's just like you listen to it and then like you have just like a running, you open up your Spotify, like when you hear a song, like I need this. This is one for video.
I do make notes about it just because there's all the trendy original audio and the like trendy stuff is funny, but I think I don't want to do too much of that. And again, like if I want, a business, if they wanted to reshare this video a year later, not to have some like extremely niche type of audio with it. So I definitely like make notes about that, make notes about, okay, like this is the different content I have, like what am I going to put out so that things are kind of varied. I have content from outside of Philly, so I want to kind of pepper that in without it being like huge spans. I go on trips and I take a bunch of content and then I'm like, I don't know, does anyone care? Like they just want to see the Philly stuff. So it's like all in a backlog. You can't really, I feel like once you're used to doing it, it's hard to kind of turn it off. But yeah, I do all the content editing myself, which for better or for worse, I mean, I enjoy it. Sometimes I am like, oh gosh, I gotta like sit down and just spend a lot of time, but it goes by pretty fast. It is scary though. You're like, okay, there was 3 hours. Like people I know that work in social media more full-time tell me they have like these crazy strategies about like efficiency with like all these timers on their phone. Cause you can it's so easy with social media to get sucked in.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's like, I really need to get on that.
Yeah, that sounds kind of nice.
Yeah, I think sometimes I'm just like, oh, social media is a great distraction from like these other things I don't want to be doing. But
so, okay, next question is, What is one of the best reactions you've gotten from filming content? I know from just like our perspective, when you're there, you're on your phone, the amount of looks you get is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it comes with the game. Is there anything then that's been like, oh, that one was a crazy one?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I feel like there's this big buildup because there's some kind of action movement with the food, whether it's like pulling a cover off, like a smoked drink, or pouring some kind of sauce, and it's just like, yeah, like the cheese pull, like spaghetti pasta pull. And it's great when it goes well and you're like, oh my gosh, this is such good content. But also sometimes I don't have a poker face, so I worry that sometimes when something just falls flat so bad that I have this look of like complete disgust. And I went to like a really expensive steakhouse and they had this au poivre sauce, which is like a French sauce made with peppercorns. And French sauces are notorious for being very, very complicated and very hard, even though you can go to the supermarket and buy hollandaise like powdered in a packet. Like real French sauces are like really skilled chefs. The sauce looked like warmed up cat food. It was so, I don't even know what was wrong with it. And it was in one of those fancy little silver gravy cups. And I went to like pour it on the steak, and I can only imagine what my face looked like. I was so horrified. And I asked the server, I was like, oh, I think this I thought maybe it had congealed from sitting out and not being hot enough. So I made him take it back and heat it up, and that was not the problem. It just, there was something very, very wrong with it. I am lucky though, I will say, for being in restaurants that have a darker atmosphere, and I have like my portable light. I try to be very conscious of the other servers because I have heard so many other horror stories of bloggers getting nasty comments. I was sitting outside a few months ago at a restaurant that did like the Wagyu hot rocks, so like little pieces of Wagyu when you cook them on the stone. Yep. Completely random that this restaurant had this because it really didn't fit with the rest of the menu. But we're sitting outside, right? So what's the worst someone's gonna say? It's not like I'm smoking, a cigar and blowing in their faces. The table next to us was so bothered by the fact that we were doing this, and was just like saying things out loud like, oh, can you believe this? I'm like, this is literally a dish served at the restaurant, and we're sitting outside like, what do you want us to do? And like calls the manager over, and we're just sitting there like, this is so awkward. And I feel bad, right? I don't want to, but it could have been anyone. That wasn't even like a me issue. That was just a very difficult customer.
Yeah, it's not you. It's just, that's them just, whatever was happening around them, they're going to complain.
Yeah, I think probably another awkward thing that happens is if you're at a restaurant and they know you're there blogging and they know you're there promoting them, and normally an order for 2 people is more like the food for 4+ people. And the tables around you are starving and they're like waiting for their food. And then the server brings out all these dishes for your table. And it's like quite literally the plates don't even fit on the table sometimes. I always ask for like a 4-top. And they're all just looking at you like, what the heck? Like, how is that girl, or how are those 2 people getting all that food? We've been here waiting. And I get like that when I'm hangry at a restaurant. Every run out of the kitchen, is that mine? Is that mine? like eyeballing
and
so hard. And
chances are something on your plate is something that they ordered also.
Oh yeah.
All the main things. You got a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I feel like that doesn't happen too often, but I do get paranoid. Like, oh, is that steak my steak, and they just put it on the wrong table? But as someone who takes hanger very seriously, like I definitely feel very self-conscious.
It's a real thing. Like people will talk about like, your dog, like why you need to calm down. Like, no, I understand what he's going through. I am not the same person.
I just think I discovered it over the last year or so. Maybe it's I'm getting older, but like now I feel hangry.
Older and hungrier.
I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. I have friends that like could eat nothing all day, go on a few hours of sleep, and they are so fine. And I don't know, man. I just feel like I'm like a monster. And I know it's so bad because I know it's happening.
You're self-aware, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like it's not like when you're angry and you just see red and you're just like screaming. It's like, yeah, I'm like there out of body seeing it happening and I can't stop it. It's just like, I need to fix the problem. So I'm usually snacking. A lot of the offices I worked at, the other people will be like, oh, I feel like every time I walk by your office, you're like snacking on something. Which again, as a woman, you're like, I don't really know that I love that people like have to constantly make these comments. But yeah, it definitely helps with like the hanger pains.
Do you do anything besides restaurants? So, like, do you do products or, you know, prepackaged stuff or
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Some, you know, a lot of the paid partnerships can usually tend to come from like shelf stable grocery store products. So that kind of is an easy bridge. And I do like cooking, so I don't mind recipe creating with like pasta sauces or products like that. It's just being conscious of the time it takes you to do cooking and recipe videos, and also the other ingredients you have to buy. Like usually it's, oh, you know, we'd love to gift you, but it's like, yeah, I got to buy other stuff. And again, if you don't want me just doing a jar of pasta sauce with spaghetti and like actually making it something that's interesting and attractive to people, there's like got to be some thought behind that. But it's been, I mean, I really like working with like alcohol and beer companies. I definitely would love to hone my skills a little bit better on like the cocktails. I feel like the cocktail content and like video content with alcohol specifically that I love is like a lot of ASMR, which I don't do.
It's ASMR. It's like a cocktail is like the same way we were talking about like fancy restaurants. The plating is so important. Like the I don't know what you call it, like the design of the cocktail.
Yes,
it's just
and like the glassware and yeah, because I think, you know, with beer and stuff, it's like coming off the tap for draft or the label on the can. But once the beer's in the glass, like there's not as much going with it.
It is what it
but
is.
It's nice when you hear like all the fizzy bubbles of like the pour, and that type of thing. So I do love that. It's definitely easier with alcohol, like being in the restaurant setting, because there's all the other things playing in. At home, it's not like as
at home
exciting.
You have to have the glass and the cup, like the cha-ching and then the fizz.
Yeah, and you really need the good lighting, I feel like, with the alcohol. But yeah, there's been, you know, like Philly does a lot of like fun kind of like food and beverage like related like events. Like there used to be like a burger brawl that was like a burger competition.
Our buddy did the app for that. Let's Rally. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that, I don't know if that's still coming around. I haven't heard about it. It was usually in the fall, but that was really fun. Xfinity and Navy Yard hosts like a few like taco festival, beer festival, wine tasting things. So all those kinds of like experiential stuff is really fun, especially when I have friends that are kind of like, oh, I want to do something more exciting than just going to a restaurant for a special occasion. And kind of a little bit of like local travel. Are you seeing that more?
Like the food festivals, is that like a more normal thing?
I definitely
festivals have been popular, but they've evolved. But I feel like food festivals are becoming more popular. Maybe I'm in my 30s now. I'm like, oh, a food festival. Food sounds great.
No, I definitely see a lot more of it in like in the New York area, because they have like they'll have a celebrity, they have like the food bloggers, and I feel like
different cuisines, like they could hone in on one cuisine,
right? And they have I think the creators
put up a pizza festival, just like got so much attention.
Yeah, it's just really hard, because I think that when I go to some events that have multiple vendors like that, I hear some pushback from the vendors where basically they're not really told the accurate count of guests that are coming to the event.
Because they run put it on the event, like, we're gonna have this many people, because that's the goal, but there's not that many people. So then the restaurants way over make their food, but who's paying for the extra food?
Right. So they'll either over make, and it's hard because they're traveling and they have to store everything, and like if they really care about the quality, they want to like make it there on the spot. But also I think that sometimes the last minute, the companies just like give out tickets to all their staff, or like they have they just have extra bonus tickets for people that they just want to like push and promote the event, and then the numbers just run up so much. You know, the extra food is not a good thing, but it's also terrible, especially when an event has so much free alcohol, that the food vendors just get crushed and so fast. And the VIP entrance is usually the people who get in first, so they get like the good experience, and then by the time it gets to general admission, the few food vendors that are left are just like completely overwhelmed. And at that point too, right, it's not really marketing your brand. People are just survival. Like, give me some carbs. I need something. Like I've been at events like you don't even really see like water readily available, which is crazy.
Yep.
I've had staff vendors at events tell us, oh, as soon as we give out all the free samples, we're allowed to go home. So they just want to like push everything like out as quickly as possible, which again is not great for promoting the brand, but you probably gotta think about that. But even just events like weather reliant, right? It's hard if you don't, the organization doesn't have like a backup plan or something if the weather is completely terrible.
I've seen something in the last couple of years, not so much in the last year, but really during COVID, there was not festivals, but there was events put together specifically for food influencers or alcohol influencers. So they would only invite people that were influencers. Like, do you go to those? And like, are those even worth it? It's almost like because everyone's getting the same exact content. Like it is, everyone's right in the same place. Right. But then everyone that I don't want to say competing against, but everyone has the same content.
Yeah. Back when I started in 2015, it definitely felt more like we were a community and everyone was like working together. And even with traditional media outlets and journalists, I definitely don't think there was some of the tension and stress that's grown over the years due to different factors. But it's just crazy to me now because my expectation was like nothing. It really was. Like the first thing I ever got for free was three sandwiches.
Yeah, I think Josh got a $50 Dunkin' card. He's like, this is so totally worth it. All the work I put in.
Right. Yeah. So the expectation was so low, like everything was just like a high. Yeah. And I think that now people are so aware of what the power of social media and what some influencers say that they're getting, that they're just doomed to be unhappy, which is a shame, right? Because they're still going to get these great experiences that other people don't have access to, but it's just their expectations are probably way up there. So some of them will tell me like, I got invited to this event, but they didn't tell me I had to post about it. Okay, well, you didn't sign a contract, but you know why they're inviting you. Yeah. So to some point, like, why am I going to go to an event with a bunch of people who think, well, if I'm not getting paid or I didn't sign a contract, like, why don't I even have to post about this? It stresses me out because I'm like, they don't really, care about this and respect this. And then I have to kind of work around them.
It's kind of a weird situation because, you and Josh are some of the biggest food bloggers, influencers in the city, and neither one of these are your main time job.
Right.
So, how are these people think that, they're going to, then just make all these things? I don't understand
I'd like to chalk it up to the fact that they probably haven't found that thing in life that they're really passionate about, so they think that this is the thing. But having a little bit of experience and being a little bit older, I feel like if this was their thing, they would be killing themselves to make it happen. Yeah. And you don't get that when you're younger, but I think that, over time you just realize the stuff that's work that I really love, I'll spend all my time because it's work, but I love it. Yeah. And I think that that's something that, Josh and I have grown and other people we work closely with, you can just tell the people who respect others, they truly care and want to be there at these events. And it's hard sometimes with our schedules, right? We can't be everywhere. So if I'm going to go to an event and I can only be there for 30, 45 minutes and I'm really worried I can't get the content that I need, I'll probably just say I can't go, or I'll reschedule. And I always say, if there's an opportunity to work with them on another date, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you for coming in. Your tire popped last time and we rescheduled. We made it happen.
Yeah. But I think that you can just tell, and there's that mutual respect, and it's okay that everyone doesn't eat, sleep, breathe, blogging to the same level. Yeah. I, don't really write as many full articles on my website. I wish I had the time to do that. I just don't. But yeah, I think over time, it's just a shame that businesses that don't have the knowledge, and even big corporate brands, they do crazy stuff sometimes, not really vetting who they're working with. And it's just, I think to myself, could you imagine just hiring an employee for your business and not even interviewing them?
Yeah,
and that's what it seems
it's
like
these,
sometimes. Like you don't even know who you're working
we
with.
have total control over everything, but let's just make this like rash decision out of nowhere to just do this. And it's like, okay, I mean that's not on brand for you guys.
And even for like payment of stuff,
Yeah.
like I have been lucky not to have to chase people down usually to pay when they, you know, we have agreed upon terms. But like the other week, some guy just like sent me the payment and I'm like, I haven't even gone in and done anything yet. Like this is like way too much blind confidence because someone else is totally just going to take this money and you are in trouble.
Yeah.
I think he just doesn't understand how it works. You know, it's just like.
So I'm like, thank you for having this confidence in me.
Yeah.
And even, you know, even with the content, right? Like I usually don't, unless it's a paid contract, I don't have pre-approval. So these businesses don't get to really see what I post until I post it. So you think to yourself, like, it is a lot of confidence to have in someone, especially someone you've never met and maybe you're not there when they come in. And, you know, you hear over the years just horror stories. People don't leave tips. People are rude to the staff. I'm always polite about, even if I don't eat everything, just like taking it with me to go, because I feel like that's a way people can be insulted. You're just like wasting food.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot when you're trying to be conscious of people's feelings, but I think it's just, you know, the types of business relationships, you get a feel for someone, maybe they're a good fit, maybe they're not.
Well, I think that's why you and Josh have survived. It's like you guys are normal, nice people.
Right.
Like it's not some just crazy, I can make this super edited video and it'll go viral. It's like
right.
You guys are like genuine people that, you know.
And I think that, you know, obviously I would love to say like, oh, I have millions and millions of followers by now. I've been doing it for so many years. And of course I meet newer influencers who have like a huge following, but you know, there's good and bad with everything. And I think because I do have to care so much still about the content, that it's leading it to be the quality that I want and
it's better.
The vision that I want. Because if I could just do anything and it would just shoot up, then I, you know, who knows what I'd be putting out there, just like probably not really quality stuff. But yeah, no, it's been really fun. It's definitely a very strange space to work in. I like meeting people. It's great to, you know, have the ability to meet you in person and talk to you. Some people definitely are very different in person than they are on social media, which kind of tends to be the nature of the beast. But it's always interesting. I'll say that.
It's fun. It's I don't know.
It's ever changing.
Yeah, I think it is fun because it's ever changing, and it can be exhausting for sure. But yeah, we talk about like sometimes you're wiped, you just like need a break. But I think you can kind of step away for a minute, and honestly, like all you need is to connect with one person that really cares and tells you this story. I'm sure you guys saw the movie The Menu.
Oh, I love The Menu.
So I had a coworker that saw that and she like did not get the part about the burger. And I was kind of trying to talk to her just because I forget that I talk to all these people who work in the hospitality industry so much that other people don't have this insight. But I was just telling her like, yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into this. Like people, so many years of their life are spent succeeding and failing, and they're at this, you know, in this place and that place. And you just never really know when it's just gonna like work and keep working. And, you know, they just like gain all this experience and knowledge, and I feel like they care so much, and it kind of like goes into all of this, like is surmassed into like this meal that they're serving you. And, you know, and she's like, oh, like, yeah, like it's not just like a cheeseburger. And I was like, no, it's really not though. And I think if you talk to people who are all about like the farm to table movement, they're super, you know, or like a brewer, like you're super in tune with like every step of the process. But especially like in the US, I think we're a little bit disconnected from things, and people forget that like their chicken tender was once a whole chicken that was on a farm.
Yeah, totally.
And like the whole, yeah, kind of like the whole thing behind it. So it's definitely, my favorite thing has really been like all the stories that people have about where they came from and what they're doing next. It's so crazy, like in the industry, how people kind of get to where they are. Sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it's so logical, like all over the place, and then something just suddenly clicks. But it's amazing. I mean, they really get some of these people, their careers take them all over the world and they meet all different types of people.
Yeah, it's not, you're not in a traditional corporate job, but it's definitely a different lifestyle.
Yeah, but I think it's fun. I mean, it's like every day it's new, and it's definitely for a particular type of personality, like someone who always wants adventure. They're creative and they always want something like new and challenging.
Definitely. Cool. I think we have talked for well over an hour.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's great. It's like I said before, like a lot of times it's like, trying to pull teeth, and it's very nice having a great personality on here. So thank you. You can find you at
PhilMyTummy, PhilMyTummy. Perfect.
Check your stuff out. I'm sure everyone has seen this already because, you are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then you can follow us at BrewedAt or at the BrewedAt podcast. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.